Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Do you think Dwight Yoakam is 68 years old? Many years later, the man still rocks those tight jeans, that hat, and that distinct voice. However, as long as he has performed, there have been rumors regarding his job and personal life actions, as well as his backstage options. And at last, he's talking about them. What is true, and what is simply gossip in a tiny town? Did he leave something enormous? And why is he making this decision? To talk now? Stay put, because Dwight just confirmed that things could change, the way you'll always see him. You understand, nowadays when people consider Dwight Yoakam, they witness the accolades, the successes, and the fantastic career. However, a lot of individuals don't understand that he had to work for his position. From nothing. And I'm meaningless. Method prior to becoming famous, Dwight was merely an additional man carrying his guitar around to small bars in Southern California are attempting to persuade someone to listen. And admittedly, Southern California wasn't desperate for more country music artists. In the past, there were further surfboards and rock bands as opposed to cowboy hats. In the meantime, country music was becoming more sophisticated, and Nashville is becoming more and more popular. That mood didn't sit well with Dwight. Rather, he intensified the old. He adored the rough-edge sounds of school. The music that gave you the impression that every word you said was true. Yes, it indicated that he was less likely to get booked. However, it also meant that when others heard him, they recalled him. Playing the night after, evening in pubs that were more like tow battlefields rather than concert halls, Dwight quickly mastered the art of room command. Occasionally, even when avoiding beer bottles, no ostentatious public relations team. No, he has the support of a record label hype machine. Up. Only he and his band were present. Dream. Word got out about the traditional way, one memorable sweaty set at a time. Finally, Dwight reflected, hey, Nashville might get it, so he packed and moved east, learning that there was no interest from Music City. They had no time to spend with you if you weren't a hit or a polished studio vocalist-composer. The majority of individuals would have either abandoned or made an effort to fit the mold. Neither did Dwight. He remained doing things his way, being loyal to his heritage. Ironically, that intransigence ultimately sparked something more significant than he had ever envisioned, a complete upheaval of what could country music be? Prior to arenas were packed with Dwight Yoakam, who topped the charts. He took the difficult route. One-bar gig at a time. He wasn't pursuing, not to mention celebrity. He was trying to find that emotion of acting out a genuine something that was important. Prior to anyone outside, his name was known to Smoky Bar, and Dwight had already amassed a devoted following that were unconcerned with radio play or honors. They simply recognized him as the true agreement. Those difficult evenings when he had to conquer every crowd and received something fake in a fancy studio is impossible. Grit. Thus, when Cadillacs and guitars eventually de-fuel, and it wasn't just a brand new tune playing on the radio, it sounded like a male voice, telling his story while kicking down the door according to his terms. Dwight's debut major release was more than a debut. It was a declaration. After being ignored for years, he didn't arrive seeking clearance. He arrived prepared to remind everybody of what the sound of country music used to be similar to. It became too smooth. And he succeeded greatly with Cadillacs, guitars, etc. An extremely unvarnished document and genuine. It was like a blast of excitement directly into a genre that had become rather too cozy. With the producer's Pete Anderson chair, Dwight recalled that difficult the Bakersfield sound, sharp guitars and loud lyrics as well as the heartbeat of the barroom that the nation had nearly been forgotten. From it was evident from the first note that Dwight wasn't attempting to fit in. He was attempting to rouse everyone. His rendition of Honky Tonk Man quickly took off, but it was Cadillacs of guitars with distinct hits. It was more than just catchy. It belonged to Dwight Yoakam condensed into a song. You could hear the years of struggling, the unyielding honor, and the confidence he gained the difficult way. It was more than just a victory on the charts. It was successful for all those who continued to think that music could exist. The album went viral and went double platinum. Detractors adored it. Fans adored it. Even individuals we were paying outside the country scene. Pay attention. All at once, Dwight wasn't no longer grinding it out in seedy clubs. Nationwide, he was playing as the main act. However, he changed more than simply his life. Heltered the genre of country music. There, he demonstrated remained space for the rebels, the external parties, who wouldn't follow Nashville's regulations. Additionally, Dwight appeared to have found his lane. He flipped, thinking he could ride it forever. The script once more. He paired up with Beck, the final individual anyone anticipated working with him. Beck was completely about strange experimental genre-bending things. Dwight was a traditional rural boy. It shouldn't have worked on paper, but magic in real life. They connected in 2012 while forming 3 pairs with a number of the tunes are co-produced by Beck. Additionally, rather of attempting to shape Dwight, Beck shoved him into something he wasn't. Him to relax even more, to have faith in his instincts rather than overanalyzing everything. There is a single instance that catches it. Dwight established this for a heart-shaped, scratch guitar track mine. Extremely harsh and unsuitable final, but after hearing it, Beck remarked, "That's the one," I said, and just like Hence, Dwight reclined into what had made him outstanding all the time. Not pursuing flawless, but pursuing reality. The entire experience opened Dwight's eyes wide, imaginatively. He began combining that ancient school integrity with fresher, more liberated sounds, attracting alt-rock and indie enthusiast children, ATEE, group that may never have heard his music in any other way. The finest aspect, he didn't need to start from scratch to carry it out. He simply removed the layers and moved closer to his core self. Was as a creative person. Collaborating with Beck was not about following a fad. It was about pushing oneself, having faith in the dirty procedure, and keeping in mind that the purpose of music is to evoke feelings in you, something. Sincerely, that's what Dwight has always existed. Unadulterated feeling, no gimmicks, just genuine stories. Regardless of whether it was sold-out arenas or honky-tonks, scratch guitar recordings or platinum, Dwight Yoakam never forgot where his albums were, he was from. And that's exactly why. He will always be a part of the narrative of music from America. Reflecting on the past, working, wasn't Dwight Yoakam taking Beck? A strange diversion. He was returning to the reasons why he was adored in the first position. Taking his own approach without being confined. Furthermore, to be honest, the spirit of do it your way persisted at the music. Long before anyone was blaring Cadillacs and guitars in their truck, Dwight was already aware of his affection for acting. It wasn't only about singing while grasping and retaining people's focus. He performed in school plays, local theater, whatever it is. If there was, he was on a stage. Thus, even when the desire to act and the success of the music career never vanished. Additionally, persons were astonished when he eventually secured an important film role playing the Not Doyle Hargraves in Sling Blade is really charming. This was not an act by a country music celebrity. Adorable on camera. Dwight provided some genuine grit paid off handsomely. Hollywood abruptly declared, "Wait, the man is genuine." After that, he wasn't merely one-hit wonder in the film industry either. He continued to show up in gritty movies such as Crank and Panic Room, and even on television programs such as Under the Dome and Wilfried. He wasn't attempting to bedazzling every time. He brought that just now, the unvarnished, sincere tone that made his songs so excellent. However, acting didn't make him go. from his songs. It only provided him with another means of storytelling. It has the same heart and grit, simply a distinct type of stage. Dwight did not leave the country, acting to music. He extended a little, demonstrating that genuine skill must be able to fit into a single box. Relocating on the manner in which Dwight plunged into performing. He wrote in the same manner, tunes that are gut-wrenching and full-on. He didn't simply memorize sentences or pretend to feel anything. He would consider what makes each character tick, the thing that frightened and broke them, their hearts, and sustained them. For him, making songs and performing weren't all that distinct. Each of them had a beat, a heartbeat that you needed to use if you desired a certain emotion in others. For this reason, Dwight's performances consistently felt authentic. If he was engaging in some villain with a gruff exterior, or a wise, you didn't only observe him, outsider, trusted him, a dot. However, prior to his victory people in films, he had a lot of greater conflict, defeating Nashville. Country music was popular in the 1980s, intensely shiny. That was what everyone want, urban cowboy style. Well-written tunes, secure crossover hits, looks, and the arrival of Bakersfield is getting twangy thanks to Dwight guitars, heartache songs and dive bars, and dressing in attire that appears. Just off the rock stage, jeans that are too tight, jackets with rhinestones, and a pulled cowboy hat low, he was impossible to miss, and Nashville was unsure about how to react to him. Dwight stated that rather than waiting forget about their approval, he went to the Ella rock clubs, discovered those who understood him, and continued to create the music he felt in. Assisting Pete Anderson intensified that unadulterated honky-tonk dude. A little rock and roll in the sound, added for good measure, is swagger. That lead to Cadillacs, guitars, and so forth. The record was so fantastic that it made everyone sit down. Get up and listen, even those who had dismissed him. The finest aspect was Nashville didn't make Dwight different. For him, Nashville has to change because he was unyielding. He made room for artists who weren't able to suit the typical mold. In retrospect, he didn't just breach the system. He contributed to the remake .et. As outstanding as Pete Anderson and Dwight were together, the sort of enchantment doesn't endure forever. They had a pleasant run. Pete's production and guitar were helpful. Dwight locates his noise. Without him, we may not own Cadillacs, guitars, etc., or these albums this time defined Dwight's profession. However, finally, things became rough. Approximately in the early 2000s, it wasn't just handshakes and smiles no longer. Then, in 2004, Pete struck. Dwight filed a complaint, claiming abandoned him and skipped a lot of concerts, holding the bag financially. Pete had already spent a lot of money preparing. It became unsightly for those shows. They decided to reach an out-of-court settlement. Not really big public outcry, however, let's face it, that such an event leaves scars. Following the split, Dwight began generating his things. He maintained his artistic freedom. Yearned for, but the sound never just the same, sans Pete. However, despite all of that drama, the majority of fans recall their run together as though, dude, that was the pinnacle. It was actual. It was, and still is, gritted, motivating artists today. However, Dwight's battles had not yet ended. Not at all. He had another conflict is on the brewing list, this time with the Warner Music heavyweights. Thus, Dwight pursued Warner in 2021 over the rights to his previous songs. You see, after 35, the Copyright Act has allowed artists to claim their labor. Hey, Dwight said, I want my belongings returned. Warner was essentially saying, hey, not so quick, continued to stream and sell his early records without authorization, and Dwight refused to accept it. It wasn't only about money as well. This had to do with possessing his entire career was based on this music. Warner threw up all the legal obstacles. They could quarrel over paperwork, time, and other things. A classic move. However, in 2022, they reached a settlement. No one is exactly sure what the situation was, but it's reasonable to assume that Dwight at least a portion of his desires. And good for him, really. Assuming being a large label is difficult, but Dwight's always been the type of person who would rather fight for what's rightfully his than give up. And the entirety. It wasn't only about Dwight. It set many veterans on fire. Artists who become aware that they could endure up as well. He did something that wasn't simply intelligent for himself, but for each a musician who has ever been in a difficult situation agreement. Considering that if there's one thing Dwight is someone you can always rely on, thus this. He will go about things his own way, regardless of the size of the opponent. Dwight Yoakam didn't simply behave in a way that west of hell, in heaven. He did everything. He co-produced, directed, wrote, and even took care of the music. He owned it, project from beginning to end. He desired to combine a rough, vintage Western feel with any profound psychological narrative. And he introduced some large names as well: Bridget Fonda, Vince Vaughn, Thornton, Billy Bob. However, despite everything, considering that, the film didn't land. The criticism was harsh. They made a call it as untidy, self-centered, and overly ambitious. It was difficult to follow the plot. The tempo was inconsistent, and audiences didn't connect with it. He didn't do well at the box office, and much better on home video. Many people blamed Yoakam's novelty for it. To leading. He saw it, but perhaps not enough experience to make it work. What should have been this large? Breakout moment became a brutal lecture on the negative effects of attempting to achieve too much can occasionally backfire. Furthermore, it wasn't. It was only his reputation that suffered. It was harsh in terms of money. When investors provided a mid-production bailout, Yoakam invested his money and even traveled into debt in order to complete the film. There was a lot of friction because of the pressure, with those he has collaborated with for years. Some of the partnerships didn't work out, numerous court cases and significant upheavals in his group. Despite the fact that West and South of Heaven of Hell wasn't warmly received, and it's still a significant portion of Dwight Yoakam's narrative. It demonstrates his artistic fearlessness. He took a significant chance, and yes, it wasn't a full-on landing, but it didn't land catastrophe as well. The majority of admirers and individuals in the sector today looks back on it, and, all right, it didn't quite work, but they don't dismiss it entirely. Not much has been said by Yoakam on the events that followed that film. He hasn't said much about it, but the fact that it is still brought up indicates something. It demonstrates that he's not the type of someone who avoids failure by playing it safe, and if he was knocked down by it a la peg, though we aren't certain it did, it simply strengthened his resolve to stick around, faithful to his vision, whatever how difficult or expensive that could be. Going forward, there have been some true treasures in my acting career. Following his breakthrough in Sling Blade, where he portrayed the ferocious and fierce Doyle Hargraves, the character began obtaining a variety of responsibilities that allow him to demonstrate his true versatility. He played it as in Panic Room Raoul, the disguised invader, and the man was quite unsettling. He hardly spoke anything, but he exuded a cold aura that made him one of the most terrifying elements of the film. People were taken aback, since that isn't like him at all. Feeling as a performer, and it caused them to recognize, hold on, this man can act. However, Yoakam isn't all drama and gloom. He has a humorous, eccentric side as well. He possessed amusing appearance in Wedding Crashers, and he appeared in that strange but fantastic display Wilfred acting like this weirdo, physician. These positions enabled him to be humorous and rather unconventional, which demonstrated that he wasn't limited to a single type of function. He has also done TV, such as He held his own beneath the dome, emerged with the group and contributed, bringing something substantial to the table. And throughout it all, he has consistently appeared, considering carefully what it means to perform him. In interviews, he stated that he pretends to be approaching music with sincerity, passion, and affection for narrating authentic tales. What's sweet is that he gives credit for performing in theater in high school and junior high with assistants. He gained the self-assurance to perform these roles. That early encounter provided him with the courage to follow his intuition in front of the camera. Additionally, acting was never about seeking notoriety. There's more about examining the profound human feelings, similar to what he does when he composes music. A dot. In retrospect, he doesn't distinguish between the two. His acting and music are simply different methods of narrating tales. He always makes an effort to share something sincere and truthful on screen or stage. Dwight Yoakam has consistently carried out a bit differently, whether performing in movies or playing When playing guitar live, he combines Hollywood and nation in a practical manner. Gritty, sincere, and wholly his own. Amusing, sufficient, entering. Other people's shoes on screen has improved his ability to. Telling is what he has always done best, using music to tell stories. He learned to act, to rely on feelings, and that's bled back into his songs. More emotion, more depth, more honesty. He has even stated, because acting requires vulnerability is not too dissimilar from standing playing a guitar by themselves on stage. Both demand that you seem in order to be genuine and to allow people to enter. That relationship between music and acting have only gotten stronger. His performances. Additionally, rather than merely glancing back at the path Yoakam has traveled, and is focused on what's next. He's not slowing down at 68. He's continuing to push, write, and tour limits while maintaining a sense of reality is the style of country music that helped to define him. Although the genre has been vacillating into hip-hop and pop, Yoakam is a formidable figure, as a reminder of where it came from. However, he's not confined to the past. He's merely confirming. We never forget the beginning. He has also emerged as a go-to source for emerging musicians seeking direction. Dwight's Sirius XM program, The Bakersfield Beat, and Yoakam do more, then start playing the hits. It provides room for the voices that are frequently ignored. The cool part comes next. He hasn't finished investigating. He has alluded to receiving more into performing once more, perhaps even attempting his hand at producing or directing. Considering his sense of character and narrative, to be honest, it feels natural after that. Step. No matter what he does, you receive the perception of Dwight Yoakam's lack of interest in silently vanishing into mythology. He's continuing to develop, continue to create, and still brimming with surprises. If one exists, Dwight Yoakam has the ability to remain and complete it his way. Whether he releases a brand new song, destroying it on stage, or entering, he brings that same thing to a movie set, authenticity and emotional impact that made. He is adored by people in the first position. His tale was the interesting part. Is far from being completed. His legacy is more than just the music or the films. It concerns how he molded the culture in which they live. Dwight has consistently had a bold manner of combining old-school country with a distinct aesthetic, never following trends, simply acting on instinct correct. And for that exact reason, he sticks out. With the music, even no industry is always evolving, thus he's not simply coasting. Dwight is still looking for new routes to travel on. His relationship with fans continues to grow stronger. The people who have always been around him are still in existence. Additionally, a whole new generation is viewing and learning about him. The timeless songs, listening to him appear in collaborations and recognizing that certain sounds keep your style current.